Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Big Chill podcast. I am, as usual, joined by Frank and Sam, and this week's special guest is Rob Robinson, assistant coach at East LA Community College, and one of the stars of Netflix's Last Chance U basketball series. So, Rob, thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Oh, hey, I'm excited to be here today. Any opportunity to talk basketball and stop what I was like my real job just for an hour and a half to talk hoops. I'll take that any day of the week.
So you'll stop coaching hoops to talk hoops.
At all times, I will, because I'm always teaching or coaching because that's what I'm a teacher and I'm a coach, right? So it's always to be able to talk hoops, man. Especially because I now that we're in here and now that I was reading the emails and stuff, like it's starting to piece together. But I really didn't piece together like London, France, like basketball. I didn't piece that together. So now that I know I'm talking hoops with like some different continents, like I'm really ready to chop it up now.
Yeah,
Let's
we
do
are
it.
in. Yeah, we can take a deep dive into the Euro League, European basketball, if you want.
I'm gonna learn something. I got questions. I might interview you. I got questions.
We can see maybe East LA can start recruiting people from Europe. That might be
Oh
the
man.
next.
Well, not to get off tangent already, but when I get 20 emails and calls a day from kids from out of the country that saw the show that want to come to LA and play basketball. Like
Oh
I get
yeah.
oh man, so many videos and calls and links to YouTubes and huddles and whatever. And the all over the place from France. I've had some from France. I've had a lot from England. I actually went and talked to the head coach at Cal Baptist University the other day and asked him if he had a connect in England that that we could cross reference because kids will just make stuff up. It won't even be them on the tape. They'll send you a tape. They'll show up. They show us a tape of 6'4" with is their name, but when they get there, they're 5'8". So you got to cross reference that stuff, yo.
Sam's done that a few times. So he got he got a scholarship at Kentucky that way. But yeah.
Yeah. You can't take their word for it. Not even in the state. The kid will be like, I'm 6'6", and then they show up, they're 6'2". So you got to have somebody on the ground there to keep eyes on people.
I guess that's an interesting jumping off point then. How has the show raised the profile of the school, and how's that kind of changed? Obviously this year might be a little bit strange, but like going forward, if you've suddenly noticed more people want to go there or more attention in general for the
Yeah,
program.
it's the show itself for the basketball program for the school, for East LA Community College. You can definitely there's going to be a before and an after. Like what was East LA before the show? What was East LA after? And then from a basketball program stance, it's the same thing. From a notoriety standpoint, from a success standpoint, East LA was really good before the show, and East LA is going to be really good after the show. But from notoriety and people looking at you or noticing you, it's completely life changing for everybody involved. The school, the coaches, to be recognized all over the globe. Myself, I'm recognized in every gym I go in now because that's where I spend my life. I spend my life in gyms, and so every gym I go in now, it's like, hey, it's Coach Rob, and everybody's like, oh, you're the greatest, and I'm the most popular laundry clothes folder in the history of college basketball. That's pretty much what I tell them because every episode, like I'm cleaning a locker room or I'm folding clothes, or I'm the most famous basketball tutor in the world right now because I was helping kids with that. But it's definitely changing for the school itself. It's not a stretch to say that at the moment, like East LA might be the most known junior college in America or even in the country and in the world, like at this moment, that junior college. So it's definitely a before and after. And we knew it would be different, but it's been a little overwhelming. To tell the truth, it's a little overwhelming to be that popular. Hey guys, I kid you not. Right now, Joe Hampton is calling me. Like right now.
Okay.
That's what
Oh,
you
really?
just. Yeah,
That's
what
crazy.
that is, isn't it? That is crazy. Joe Hampton just is calling me like right now for something. Yeah, you never finish being their coach. That is for sure. Never.
Yeah, And that was actually going to be one of my questions
Yeah.
is how much contact are you keeping in with these kids after they leave your program? And not just the kids on the show, but just in general, all the kids that are going through this program, are you still in a good amount of contact with them, or?
Especially because of the weirdness that was how it shut down and the uncertainty that was going around in their lives at that time. Like they needed to talk to you every day, every week for like 6 straight months. Like they was talking to me, Coach Mosley, or Ken, because of the uncertainty. And so once they got to their places, uh, those kids, then those coaches there, like Sean's at Sacramento State, Leak is at Central Michigan, got other guys at other schools. Those coaches took over that for us, all the little things, just signing up for the right stuff, making sure your aid's in order, all that stuff that we used to do. Now another program does that. So now it's more of us checking in on them. And so throughout the season, I would text the guys once a week because I'd watch their games. And it's cool because now you can just more be their fan, rather than their coach. I'm just their biggest fan in the world. And because what I say doesn't really matter. Like I could be like, hey, Deshaun, you need to do this, this, and this. But if his coach ain't saying that, then he's just gonna get benched. So I just stay away from that. I'm just his biggest fan. Like, great assist to turnover ratio. I say stuff like that. I'm not telling him to shoot more because I might get him benched. So it's so we do, and the kids are in contact a lot with Coach Mo and Ken as well. I would say all the guys you saw on that show, especially the ones that went on, they're in contact with us weekly throughout for the last 12 months. I would say weekly. Yeah. And especially since the show came out, I mean, we talk to them like all the time because of we do interviews together, or they might have questions, or I might just, call them up to say, I don't care how many followers you got, pop his bubble. Like, I don't care how many followers you got, go run a hill today, like, yeah. So we're in contact with the kids, but that's the norm though, because even if it wasn't under these circumstances, we would still be in contact with the kids, especially this time of the year, because a lot of them come back in the summertime, in the springtime. And East LA is home base. And so that's where they get their workouts in. That's where their runs are. That's where they're safe to come and play. Nobody's going to hurt you in that gym. Kids just play hard, because you go in the wrong gym in the wrong day, kid just undercuts you because he don't like you. And that's not going to, so you usually want to go back to where you played. And so this time of the year, especially, we see and hear from a lot of kids over the last 5 years that from East LA as they come and check in with home base.
That's a kind of one of the, in a way, instance I want to touch on at that level of coaching. How do you feel like the balance between being almost a mentor and a kind of guide to them versus actually being a coach who's working on their fundamentals and improving their game? Like, where is that balance for the average player coming through the program?
It's geez, I mean, there's 24 hours in a day, and basketball is like 2 of them. And so the mentor aspect and the things that you do with kids, it's more off the court than on. It's because they have so many things they got to do in a day, from an academic standpoint, from a personal standpoint, and you have to lift weights. There's a lot of things they do during the course of a regular school day for a student athlete. Basketball, Coach Mosley with a whistle, running them into the ground. That's only 2 hours. That's it. So the balance is kind of, it weighs less towards basketball, and the more the mentorship and the helping them with those other things. Because if those other things are really good, or they're positive, or they're going in the right direction, then those 2 hours, those kids can focus on basketball. But like if Joe Hampton's having a problem off the court and we don't get that fixed by 3:00, he brings that on the court at 3:00. So, I mean, your day is full. Your day is full just to get 15 guys mentally prepared and ready to go at 3:00. And like, hey, the basketball, really, that's the easy part. That's the easy part. As hard as it is to coach young men, and as hard as it is to get the best out of them, that's really the easy part of the day. It's the other 22 hours that drive us crazy.
Did you
Yeah.
speaking of that kind of being out like 2 hours basketball, obviously the rest being something else, how do you think the show represented them as people? And do you think they changed in front of the cameras? That's something I was interested in. Did you feel this was like a very genuine?
Did the players change?
Yeah. Did you feel like when the camera was on, they acted up to them?
Yes. Hey, no question for the first 2 or 3 weeks. No question. Like the first 2 or 3 weeks, everything was awkward. It was like an 8th grade dance, like it was, everything was just awkward. Like the cameras would come on and they would look around like, what do I say? Kind of what do I do? Even in a practice situation, like they played maybe a little bit different because they filmed all our practices. And so that's getting your practices filmed that's interesting because you might film the practice from a coaching standpoint because you want to stat it from a rebound standpoint, turnover standpoint, something like that. But they didn't film it like that. Like, they're filming everything and they're on these carts and they're going around and they're doing this stuff in a practice. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, there was some issues with the way they acted or even in the way they played. But what you'll hear is, if you ask any of us, like you really do get used to it. And by the end of December, they weren't even there. Like they weren't even there. And the kids got comfortable and they kind of figured out like 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, they're different in the sense that their filter is way different. They don't have to be professional. And that comes out like the way they talk to each other and the way they talk to other people. They're not in that mode. Like, this could affect the rest of my life. So they could be in the president of the school could come in and they'd be like, hey man, shut the F up. They don't even care. That's just how they are. As you get older, you're like, well, hey, time and place. I might say shut the F up every once in a while, but there's a time when the chancellor and the president come in, or if the mayor of LA comes in the office, you don't act like that, right? So but it was a change, and it was tough for the coaches as well, because we're recorded all day. And what I learned after even like 2 weeks is like, no one is supposed to be recorded all day. Like that's not natural. That's like, there's an episode where I get out the car and they show me get out the car and what I do. That happened every day, except they would put a mic on me when I got out the car. So I get out the car, there's a mic on, somebody, like, I can't even see, like they have these different areas around campus, like little hubs where they have their equipment. Like right when they do that, boom, record. Now they're recording what I say. And that's the whole day. And so at the beginning, you're like, my gosh, like they're recording everything I say. And then you kind of forget, and then you become close kind of with the sound people and the directors and the site director and the storyboard people. And so then it's like 3 or 4 times a day, I would just be like, all right, hey guys, don't record this. Because
okay, I was gonna ask that if you had that ability to go off the record.
I'd be like, hey, don't record this, or this isn't going to be a part of it, because now I have to have a conversation with the player, or hell, my wife. I got to have a conversation right quick.
Yeah.
And this isn't for LCU. This is for something different. And they're really good at. They're not going to do you dirty. Those people are on your side. They are definitely on your side, and they're not gonna make you look bad unless you're just an ass like the dude was down like in Kansas for that.
Yeah, I was going to touch on if you were a little bit hesitant, because obviously there was a lot of backlash to how he treated students, and
you couldn't sugarcoat what that dude was doing, And I like Jason. Like I'm not anti him at all, but there's just no way that a director or an editor could have edited out that assness. There's just no way, that's what it was. Our head coach was apprehensive about watching that, because he was worried about maybe how he would be portrayed, because he doesn't cuss at all, right? He's not like that, but he coaches harder than that guy does. He just does it in a different way. And but he does it in a way though where it was more positive. And so I thought it would come off. I thought it would come off good. Don't get me wrong. There's some days where like me and Coach Ken are looking at each other like, hey, Coach Mo is crazy. Like because he would literally do some crazy stuff. And like maybe he might have went a little bit too far today, even that. But we knew it would look good because basketball is a different look than football because it's so personal.
No, I felt like everyone came across, from the players to the coaching staff. I thought everyone came across pretty well. Was everyone from the inside? Are you all happy with how you were portrayed and how the edit worked? Or are there a couple people who feel maybe that either they didn't, from a player's perspective, maybe they didn't get as much sort of face time as they would have
Oh
wanted?
yeah, that was see, that was I would guess that would be probably the only negative, is that some players thought they would be more a part of it, and that like the show really went in the direction of 2 or 3 guys, like 3 guys mainly, and then it was kind of sprinkled in right there, because as you're shooting it, like you don't know, because of course like they're going to Joe's apartment, or they're following KJ to the locker room, or seeing us in that academic environment, but they did that with all the guys. So there's guys that are like, well, shoot, where's my story? Like, what happened with my story? But I guess you can only get in like so much, in there. But as to your point, was it authentic and how it came off, or how did we feel about the authenticity of it, and how we felt that we looked? I felt great about it. I didn't think I'd be much actually a part of it. But from that same token, like, so did Coach Mo. Like, we would literally sit there at the end of weeks or the end of games and say, like, well, this show's gonna suck. Like, there's nothing. Like, there's nothing here. We said that all the time, even even to the end, right? And I'm sure we're going to talk about the end at some point. Even in the end, like, I apologized to one of the producers, and not like I was sorry, but I was like, hey man, like, geez, I'm sorry, man. Like, you guys, that ending, it just sucked, right? And one of the top guys in that show looked at me and goes, oh my gosh, that's the greatest ending we've ever had for a show. He goes, this sucked for you. But from
Yeah.
our standpoint, that's the most incredible ending relative to what was going on in the world. Like, they was like, well, we struck a gold mine. And for the next 11 months, I was like, what the hell are they talking about? Because I didn't see it. All I saw was sadness and uncertainty that day. And the way they put it all together, though, it was really good for the show. But throughout the season, we had no idea. Like, me, Coach Mo, and Ken, like, we didn't see the story, because to us it was the 2019-2020 basketball season. To everybody else, it was like the Last Chance U. But for us, it was just the basketball season that was no different than the season before, which is no different than the season like right now. It's just, every year you got if you're any good, man, you got a bunch of JC kids who got lots of problems. Because if you're good, if you got D1 players in your program, something went wrong.
Yeah.
So it's every year it's like that.
And you mentioned earlier the fact that they're recording everything from the practices and the games, and they're maybe doing it in a different way than you would for film. But was any of that ever useful from a coaching standpoint? Were they giving you footage that you could use, like, sort of, you wouldn't have had otherwise? Or is it just because it's for TV, it's not the same?
One day I did ask him, because I was I was like, hey, can I get some tape of that because of what happened? And they were like, no, we can't put that together for you right now. And that wasn't going to go. But I did want to see what happened one day, because you guys didn't see a lot. I mean, fools were going to blows weekly. Like, and I wanted to kind of see how that kind of transpired, how that went up to it. And I'd end up asking, and they really didn't share and give us that access. But by that same token, they were looking at it way different than we were. They would film for 4 days and then work all weekend on the 4 days of film. Whereas a basketball coach, we press stop, 30 minutes later, we're breaking down the last 2 hours. And that's not how they do their show. But because there was some game film even where I was like, I remember I was like, well, let me see that angle of that for that Cerritos game at the end, because I only got this one angle, and we didn't have that kind of agreement. But now that you say that, maybe we need to do that for season 2. Like, they need to help a brother out so I can get some better angles on those boxing out, or that helps ID.
Yeah, and I would have thought, even from a player perspective, when they're putting together like the reels that they're putting, it's like sending to
yeah.
other schools potentially. If you have this super well produced stuff versus just like
Produced by
gym footage.
Netflix,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got whole credits that run at the end.
Yeah, that would have been, it'd have been nice to use their stuff for the film breakdown. I'm telling you that would have been nice. Because if you know anything about watching film breakdown and the way we film, I mean, it's usually that dude up top and they look like ants on the court and you have to circle stuff. And I'm like, no, Malik, that's you. You can't even tell because it's just a bunch of dark dots out there running around and you're trying to get it right. And so, yeah, it would have been really nice to be able to use their stuff, especially even with their music. It would have been inspiring because, I mean, I was watching that. I'm like, wow, I'm inspired by that play right there.
And I was there.
Going back to one of the things you just said about, going through some of the footage to see, if there was like a fight or a scuffle or something like that. That's something that always interests me about junior college, especially basketball, I think, is you have 5 guys on the court who are all going through junior college to make that transition. And how hard is it to put together that team to want to win a championship when you also have guys that kind of just want to highlight themselves as a stepping stone? Like how much rivalry is there in between the players? Like I want to start versus I should be starting. That's got to be so difficult to coach.
JC is a very unique situation, especially from a basketball standpoint, more than any of the other sports, because the moment the season starts, you have 2 parallel pathways going on simultaneously. You have the team and what they're trying to do, and you have the player and what he's trying to do. And from a coaching standpoint, both of those are equally important to us. So we want to win, but it's just as important that we get this kid out of JC and get him a scholarship so he can get an education, so he can change where he comes from. And so you have this parallel, it's like a parallel road, 2 roads going in the exact same direction of success. And it is incredibly difficult to cross over to get the kid what he needs and be successful as a team. Like if you only needed to do one of those, that would be a little bit easier. Like all we're going to do is win, screw the player, his stats, how much he plays, forget it. We're going to put together a team and go. Or like screw the winning, let's showcase our players. They got talent. Everybody gets a scholarship. Doing both is incredibly hard. And that's why there's such a gap between really good JCs and not good JCs. There really is a gap. There really is a have and have nots of community colleges. And because that's really hard to do, because the better players you get, besides the problems, the harder it is to get them to buy into winning basketball games, because you're going to a JC to not go to a JC. Like their goal is the first day they go in there is to go somewhere else. Whereas like if we're the coach at Loyola Marymount or Cal State Long Beach or one of these LAD1s, the goal they come in is to win college basketball games and go to the NCAA tournament, so it's incredibly difficult to do, but Coach Mosley has built a foundation there to where the kids understand if you come to our program, like if you make it through the 2 years, it's a given you're getting your scholarship. Like you're going to get a deal because you're good enough. One, we're not going to really bring you in if you're not good enough to get a scholarship. Like we're not going to tell a kid who's not going to play on after the 2 years, like you should come to East LA Community College. No, we're going to attract, and Coach Ken is going to recruit guys who are scholarship basketball players where something went off the rails. So they're already really good basketball players.
And that's 100% the entire team, like from bottom of the bench to number 1 starter.
To the number 1 guy. Like we're recruiting guys just think out of that group. I mean, we had 10 sophomores. Only one of them hasn't got a deal yet. And he was offered a deal, but he's decided to go on a musical career. I mean, I don't even know what that. He's one of my favorite players too. If you see him on the show, Taj. The other day I called him up and I'm like, dude, what's up with that school? They offered you a full ride. Like this school offered him a full ride at NAIA school. And his response back to me was he sent me an audio file of his newest track. That was his response back. It wasn't like why he didn't take the scholarship or nothing. It was like, I look down and I see audio file and I hit it and it's his newest release. And I'm like, well, okay, that's where he's at mentally. Right. But like 9 out of 10 guys got a deal. And one of the guys who didn't even play for us at all, he just tweeted out the other day, he signed with San Diego Christian College on a partial athletic, partial academic scholarship to where he's playing. So, and you don't really come to East LA unless you're trying to go to a 4-year, and we're not going to let you in the gym if that's not going to happen. Not to be mean or anything like that. That's just what the level is. Like if you come in and you're 5'8" and you can't run and jump and dribble, well, that's not going to happen. Like anyway.
That's me out then.
Yeah, sorry, Sam.
And if you're a really good high school player and you're not quite there, like maybe now a player might want to come to East LA because of notoriety. But before, if you wanted to play college ball, you wouldn't go there anywhere because you're not going to play. You have absolutely no chance. So you got to be competitive and good to sign up with Coach Mo at East LA for sure.
So I kind
how
of
realistic.
Go ahead.
Just to finish, how realistic are the expectations of the players themselves? Like how well does everyone come thinking I'm going to make it to the NBA, or are most of them sort of aware of if I can just get a scholarship to a 4-year school, that's where I am?
I would say 3 out of 10 are realistic. 3 out of 10 kids, like 3 out of 10 kids are like, man, hey, I just want to get help with college. Like, I just want to play at the next level. Like, let me work and let me do this. And then like, I always break everything down, like as a coach or, and people you work with, I always try and break thing down into thirds, right? Like as a coach, when I was a head coach, I used to always say a third are going to like me, a third are not going to like me, and a third are probably going to be in the middle. And that's usually most things that you deal with. So I would say a third, same thing, a third no, like they have realistic expectations. A third are a little muddy, and then a third are delusional, like completely delusional as to where they're going to go. Like they'll walk in and like, hey, how come Duke ain't calling? And like, and they're an NAIA guard, and you're like, how come I'm not going Division I? Or they'll be like, where's UCLA? You know, and you see, when's the last time UCLA even had a junior college player? Like, you know, that's not even going to happen. So, but a third are really delusional. And as to your point about the pros, by the time they get to us, like in high school, every one of them think they're going to play in the NBA. Like I would guarantee like every kid that we have in our program thought they were going to play the NBA when they were in high school. By the time they get to college, I would say half of them believe they have a chance to play professionally. I would believe half. But out of that half though, out of ELAC, and if you go back and look, maybe not in the NBA, but I mean, almost all our Division I guys have played overseas at some point or played something professionally. So you really do have a chance. There's a lot of opportunities. They're not glamorous. You might make 40,000 in a B league somewhere, you know, and then have to work for a company in the off season. But it's still maybe you have an opportunity to play professional. But I would say in our program, definitely a third. Like, and a third kind of know their lane and they're just happy to get it. A third are going to be a little both. And then a third are just like, it's like talking to a wall. They're speaking another language to me when we're putting together their plan to get out of East LA.
So the other question I had too, I think it's really difficult about the junior colleges. You only have 2 years, right? So you're getting these kids who might have academic issues or attitude adjustments they need to get. How difficult is that to get them in and within 2 years to have them graduated and out and kind of have them back on the right track to getting to that D1? I mean,
wow, it's on the surface, you know, and a kid shows up in August, you would think like, okay, I got the next 19, 20 months to get it. But it is a sprint and it happens so fast. And throughout the show, you hear Mosley say it all the time, like it's about to be over. Like it's going to be over. Like you can't wait to do something. You have to do it now. It's going to be over. We constantly feel like as coaches, like you feel like you're drowning because you don't know if you're doing enough the entire time because of that sprint. Like, you know, when your players melt down and all, you saw a lot of like Joe Hampton's meltdowns during the season, but we had 15 guys on the team and KJ and Taj were the only 2 guys who didn't quit at some point. The other 13 guys did that Joe thing. Jersey's off, I'm out of here. Or or they went in the locker room, they threw their stuff down on the ground, and then we didn't see them for 2 or 3 days. Like every kid had those type of issues. And then when that happens, you think to yourself, because you know we're experiencing this, you're like, man, this kid ain't gonna make it. Like, what I got to do more to get this guy right mentally. Like, we know he can play, but we got to get him right. We got to get him right mentally. And so it's a marathon in a sense that you got 20 months to get it, but you feel like it's a sprint and you're drowning while you're doing it because you're so worried that everything's not going to be right. Like, are they going to? I mean, if you fail one class, like you're behind, and now we're catching up. And the kids are going to fail a class. Like they're going to get a D in a class. A D will get you an AA degree, which is what you need, but it's not going to go to the next college. So when those things happen, you constantly have that feeling like you're falling behind, and you can feel like you're drowning. That's why Coach Mosley's so stressed out all the time. He is stressed out all the time because he feels like he's drowning. Like, am I doing enough on the court, off the court? Is his staff, me and Coach Ken, are we doing enough for the kids on the court, off the court? So it's incredibly difficult to stay ahead of that, and because you only got 2 years. But they all get out, they get their AAs, and then they go on. And our hope is that whatever happened during those 20 months, like they just take that with them and don't make the same mistakes twice. You know, it's the same thing that we have every day in a practice. And our goal every day in practice is everybody, like, don't make the same mistake twice. Because in basketball, you can turn on a game right now, mistakes are being made at the highest level. So as a coach, you're just like, well, just don't do that again, you know? But somehow, some way, them kids figure out a way to make the same mistake a different way, like 2 possessions later. I don't even know how that works, but it just don't make the same mistake twice. And that's the same thing we're trying to do is when we push them on to the next level. Whatever mistakes you made getting to us, whatever mistake you made with us, let's not make that mistake again.
That's interesting. And I guess you've touched on a number of points of them having to kind of mature and learn about themselves. How much do you see when you look back on where you were at that stage and the kind of basketball journey that you went on? How much are you able to see the mistakes you might have made or the kind of delusions you might have had? Do you see yourself in a lot of those players?
I see myself in every single one of them. You see it, and that's why I have such a heart for them, is because it is so hard to play college basketball at any level. If you meet a guy and he played 4 years of college basketball, I don't care what the school was called, whatever. I have total and complete respect for that kid or for that man. Like, oh, I played at this college back in the 90s, and it might be a school I never even heard of. Immediately my hat is tipped, and I have a different level of respect because it is so hard to play college basketball. And I remember how hard it was. Like when you're going through it, it's hard, but in retrospect, when you look back, especially teaching these kids, like they have no idea how difficult like this is because they're just playing basketball. And that's why I have such a big heart for them, is because I realize what they're going through and how difficult like it can be. And I draw on that every single day as I deal with the players, because I myself was, if you talk about delusional, yeah, I was delusional like to the very, very end. Like when the last game I played in the USBL, like I played it, like maybe let's say my last game was on a Thursday. On that Wednesday, I'm like, where's my 10-day contract? Like, where's my call up? You know? and then the next day, I'm never playing basketball ever again. You know, so we can be really delusional as basketball players, and I try to keep them realistic. And that's one of the things I do is I try and be so truthful with them, like day one, about realistic expectations, and then also like letting them know, like, hey, you're doing well. Like, even if you didn't play well today, you're doing well. Like, even if you're struggling in that class, like you're doing well, like you have no idea, like you're pushing towards something greater. Like, just keep plugging away, because I realize how tough it is. You got to be tough, strong, physically and mentally to play college basketball. And my hat goes to everybody who's done it, and especially these kids who are going through it.
Yeah, and I guess that's the balancing act too, right? Because if you crush the dream, then that might be the end for them anyway. Like the moment when you don't have the hope and the optimism that you're going on to something bigger, then the kind of the struggle that you're going through in the moment becomes pointless.
Yeah.
So I guess you got to kind of, in a sense, you got to still feed it a little bit so that they believe there might be something more that they can still like strive towards.
And we're fortunate that the guys that we have are talented enough that there is something better as long as they do X, Y, and Z. As long as they do that. Yeah. Even the guys on the back end, we were honest with, and like the kid who I was just talking about, who just got a deal at a small NAIA school down in San Diego. Like, he knew throughout the season, like, dude, this is going to be hard to get you out. Like, it's going to be difficult, and we need you to keep plugging through. And there was weeks where he didn't want to, because he's like, what for? Like, I'm not even, like, why am I running this 10 in a minute? Why am I diving on the floor? Why am I doing all this? And I'm not even going to play when I go on. And those can be difficult conversations, but hey, that's basketball. And every level you go up in basketball, your talent starts to run out, every single level. And coming to that reality and the grips with that reality that your talent has run out, hey, that's hard, but it happens to every single one of us who's ever picked up a ball. Every one of us who's picked, even the guys who make it to the NBA, at some point during their career, their talent runs out. At some point it happens, unless you're Steph Curry. This fool's like 30 something. The dude ain't missed in like a month. Like, what the heck is going on with, that? Like, I'm watching in amazement, like, every night. And the other night I was upstairs. I don't even mean to get off track on you guys, but I yelled at my wife downstairs. I'm like, hey man, this dude's 30 something. He just hit 9 threes. He just hit his 9th three. Like it's hard to do that in a rec league at 32, much less with a dude 6'7", 220 with a 40-inch vertical chasing you around. But that's a whole other story. But we all run out of talent. And so helping the kids realize that, and be good with what happens when the ball stops bouncing. Did you feel good about it? And that's why I keep, like, just keep pounding at them. Like, if you gave everything you have right now, I'm telling you, like, don't quit, don't give up, keep grinding. You'll feel good about the end, because if you don't, you feel horrible about the end. You'll have regrets. And that's the worst thing any athlete can have, is like, I should have, could have, I wish I'd have done this different, because I have that. I worked my ass off for 4 years, but I'm telling you, I can remember right now a bullshit effort I gave at Moore Park College in '92. I want that game back. I remember that game. I want it back right now. I'll do anything to get that game back. And I try to tell them just how important every minute of every game is that you get to play in.
I guess you've touched on there a little bit, the more details about your own career. And that was kind of one of the mysteries a little bit about the show, I have to say. It's like one of the reasons why you're one of the more intriguing characters, is they kind of touch on your background, but never go into it in too much detail. Sort of what exactly happened throughout then your own community college and then college basketball, and then what did you do afterwards, and then why did you make the decision to jump back into coaching?
So, but get back into coaching. My basketball career is to say it's interesting was, boy, yeah, it was interesting. I was really good when I was young, and I mean really good when I was young. And when ages 14, 15, 16, 17, I was good as anybody over here in the States during that time. All the guys who in the class of 91, every one of them, I was on a level with them, except I just stopped growing when I was like 14 years old. I was like 6'2", 180 when I was 14. And then somehow when I was 21, I was 6'1". Like, I shrunk somehow. I'm not sure how that happened.
50 years early.
Yeah, I had shrunk. But I had an interesting one, because at the end of my high school career, I got hurt both my junior and senior years. And I didn't play in very many games. And then I was still talented enough and good enough, although I didn't play in very many games, to get offered a scholarship, and I was going to go to San Jose State, play for Coach Morrison up at San Jose State. And so when I went up there to kind of finalize that deal, I figured out I didn't want to be at San Jose State. And I thought, because I was a qualifier, if I go to junior college for 1 year, then I'll be able to write my ticket, because I didn't play for 2 years pretty much in high school. And I thought I had a lot. Like I'm watching the guys I know, like, go to Kansas, go to Michigan, go to Arizona, like guys that I'm as good as, and that I was played better than, that were signing with. And I was like, all right, I just got to get healthy and give me 1 year. And lo and behold, my first day of practice, my freshman year at my community college, is when I blew my knee out. And so I was chasing that all through college. And And that's why I have such a man when kids get hurt, like a week or two ago. I don't watch a lot of NBA. I don't. But for some reason I was watching that Denver game where Jamal Murray went down, and I was sick to my stomach watching that, because I knew from experience that once that happens, like 2 years of your basketball life is done. And I mean that because you spend a year rehabbing. You're not getting better, you're getting back to. And then it takes another year to feel comfortable with that. And so with my own self, from age 18, because I ended up having a couple more procedures on that knee throughout my college career. So from 18 to 21, like all my time was spent rehabbing. It was never spent working on my game. Like all I did was work hard to get back on the court to get hurt again. And then it kept happening. I was just fortunate and blessed enough that I was a good enough athlete that I could still keep playing, and people still wanted to give me books, tuition, and fees in order to do it. I was so blessed in that. And so I was always hurt. And but a lot of that had to come from, and it's kind of, I don't know if it's touched on in the show, but it is in my biography. I was a really good track athlete. I was one of the best high jumpers in the country in high school. And I was recruited very heavily to run track by the top track programs in the country. I was a 7-foot high jumper, and I was anchoring championship relay teams. So I could run and jump. I was a really good athlete. But I decided to go away from that because I love basketball so much. But all that jumping over those years in high school, it caught up with me with my left knee, because that was the leg I jumped off of. And that's my whole left side of my body just ended up breaking down on me, 91 to like 95. So my basketball career, I never really reached my potential, but it wasn't because I wasn't trying. I mean, I tried. And so I was at Al Hancock Community College, where I feel like I played like on one leg for a couple of years, but I did good enough to get a Division I scholarship to Stephen F. Austin State in Texas, and I went down there, and that was fun. Like it was cool. At Stephen F. Austin State, I think I learned the most valuable lesson that I've ever learned in my entire life, and I coach, and I see everything from that perspective that happened to me at Stephen F. And what happened is I went down there to play, and I was the California kid on a Texas team, and everybody there was from Texas. And so I played, but I didn't play a lot. And the guys that were playing, I could easily do what they were doing. I mean, they were not better than me in any sense. But and when the season was over, I went into the head coach's office, and I said that. I'm like, dude, like I didn't play. Like I'm leaving. I'm transferred. And so they're trying to get me to stay. And I told him, I'm like, I'm as good as the guys that's playing. And then he taught me the most valuable lesson I've ever had in my entire life. He said, you're right. You are as good. You're not better. And when you're as good as somebody, you leave it up to interpretation. And at the time, I just went like this, stuck my finger up at him, and got in the car and drove back to California. Right. I didn't get the message at that time. Because, and I understand now, like, if I played him instead of the kid who was from Tyler, Texas, he can never go back and recruit in Tyler, Texas again. So what he was telling me is, you damn sure better be better than the kid from Tyler, Texas, if you're going to play. And I didn't get that message at that time, but as I coached and as I figured it out later, like that's the whole foundation of every conversation I have with kids. It's the same as I coach for myself. Like I'll never say I'm as good as somebody else. Because if you're as good, then it leaves it up to interpretation. And so when a kid comes in my office and goes, hey, I'm as good as the kid that's playing, I'm like, conversation's over. Because now it's up to me whether or not you play. Are you better? Because if you're better, now we're going to have an argument, right? Like if you're better, then how come you're not playing? So that's what happened kind of at Stephen F. Austin. But I left Stephen F. Austin, went to UC Riverside at the time, which is the story is actually, it's pretty comical. I was living in a dorm in Texas, and it was a spring morning. And for some reason, I'm up at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is, I don't know how that happened, but I'm up at 8 o'clock in the morning. And if you're ever in a dorm back in the 90s, then you had 4 channels. If you're in a dorm in the 90s, there's only 4 channels in the dorm. So I turn on my TV at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's the Division II national championship game, and UC Riverside is playing in the Division II national championship game. At the time, my dad lived in Long Beach. So I was like, Riverside. I break out a map. I'm like, where's Riverside? And I was like, oh, hey, I can do that. That's close to my dad's house in Long Beach. And so like 2 days after the championship game, I called up the coach at UC Riverside, and he remembered me from community college and was like, oh, for sure, come play for us. And so I signed up at UC Riverside because I only had like that channel and they were on TV that day. Because I didn't know where I was going. I had no idea. I just knew I was leaving Texas because the coach who was obviously knew what he was doing, I thought was an ass. Like, what did I know? Because I was young and I was delusional like the players I coach now, right? So I ended up in Riverside, which is a really good experience. I played really well at Riverside. My leg kind of held up that year. I had a couple issues, but it was one of my better years health-wise. And so it came out and I was able to do some really cool athletic things on the court like I used to do. Even so much that when the season was over, true story, when the season was over, I go into the counseling office and the counselor tells me, hey, none of your classes from Texas count here at a UC. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm about to graduate. She goes, no, you're not even close to graduating. Like that whole year in Texas was nothing. Like it was one of the most depressing days of my life. Like I spent 2 summer schools and 2 semesters in Texas, and they took 1 history class out of all that. So I was
And they waited a year to tell you this?
Yeah.
But the coach didn't tell me. He might have been a little shady at UC Riverside telling me I was going to graduate in a year because he wanted me to be there. He wanted a Division I transfer. You know, that wasn't cool. So I'm depressed. Like I need a whole other year to graduate and I only have 1 year eligibility. So I go tell the coach, like this is what they say. And he's like, okay, we'll pay for summer school. I don't know about next year. I'm bringing in like somebody else. That was a depressing day. And that week, I'm walking in the hallway and somebody yells out to me, Bobby Robinson. So I turn around because hardly anybody calls me Bobby anymore. I changed my name when I moved back out and left Texas just because there was some carnage back there. So I'm like, no, I'm going to Rob. I'm not Bobby anymore. I'm going to Rob. So somebody said like Bobby Robinson. And I look around and it's the track coach at UC Riverside. And he says, what are you doing here? And so we start having a conversation. Now he knows me. Like every track coach in California knew who I was in college because every one of them recruited me. I was, like I said, I could jump 7 foot. I could long jump 24 feet. I was fast. I was very recruitable. Cal, USC, Michigan, Nebraska, everybody offered me scholarships in track when I was in high school. So he says, hey, you want to come out and run track? And I was like, no chance. Like I don't mess with sports no more. And he said, give me your transcripts. So he looks at my transcripts and he tells me, he goes, you have 2 quarters of eligibility left after this basketball season, 2 quarters. He tells me, if you qualify for the national NCAAs, we'll pay for your last year to run track for that 1 more quarter. But I got to qualify in the now at that moment. And so I called home to my dad and my dad was like, and I was like, Dad, like they said, if I qualify for the NCAAs, now granted, I ain't jumped in 4 years. I haven't jumped in 4 years of track. And they were like, if I qualify for the NCAA finals, now we're talking about college finals. If I qualify, they'll pay for my last year. And my dad was like, well, when they say jump, tell them, ask how high. Pretty much that's what he's saying. So I go out and I told you I was having a good year with my leg and it was the best year I'd had on my surgically repaired leg in like 4 or 5 years. And this really happened, man. I started getting a little momentum and my leg started feeling better. And I ended up having this incredible day at Cal State Bakersfield on this hot day in May. And I jumped like 7-1, like that day. And I got back and coach goes, you might qualify for the finals. I'm like, holy shit. I can't believe I might qualify for these finals. And I'm thinking, okay, I might graduate. That's all I'm thinking. Like I might graduate from college. And how they did the finals, I don't know how they do it now, but back then they would take, they took the top 12 jumpers in the country. And I was like 11, 12, like right there. Like I was right there. And so it came down to the last day of the NCAA season to where I snuck in at 11 and I got invited to the NCAA finals in 1996 where I jumped. Ended up taking 9th. If you take 1 through 9, you're an All-American. And so they ended up paying for my school. And so that's how I graduated from
Wow.
college. That I ran from track, but track ended up getting me a degree, and it wasn't basketball. So it kind of all circled around. Towards the end of that track season, though, my uncle knew a guy, and my uncle was big in basketball, and he knew a guy who owned a team in the United States Basketball League, the Tampa Bay Windjammers at the time, and they were moving to Columbus, Ohio. And he got me set up to go back there and work for the organization and get a chance to play in the USBL. And I did really well there too. I ended up coaching the team because they fired the coach halfway through. They were going to disband the team. If you know anything about like back then, back in the 90s, like the minor leagues of basketball, I mean, there was no money involved. It was the wildest things you could ever imagine. If I could tell the stories of that, one, I'd never have a job again, but two, you guys would laugh for hours. The things that happened during my 4 months there were just mind-boggling. But they
So were you a player coach?
Yeah, I was. No, I was like,
Wow.
I was playing. Like one day they fired the
That sounds
coach,
fun.
and then I was coaching, and now I'm coaching with guys. Like I'm coaching with guys I was just drunk with the night before. Like it was literally like it was really one of those things. And the guy was going to fold the team, and he was like, "Hey, we're firing the coach," and he goes, "We're going to fold the team," and he just jokingly, the owner, just jokingly, is like, "Oh, unless you're going to coach it." I was like, yeah, like
Challenge accepted.
like, let's go. Like, I'll coach the team. And then he goes like, "Hey, you can have as many players as you can fit in that van. I'm not flying you guys anywhere anymore." So me as the coach, I was a head coach in the USBL at 25 years old with a van full of pros driving all up and down the East Coast, playing in basketball games, Raleigh, DC, New Hampshire, Atlantic City, Camden, hey, Asbury Park. That was a heck of a story. Asbury Park. It was an incredible experience. Incredible experience doing that. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm a coach, you know, and I think I'm gonna coach, because you figure out in professional basketball real quick if you're good enough to play. And the bottom line is I wasn't good enough to play. I wasn't. I mean, you have to be so good according to your size. And I was a damn good basketball player, 6'1", 6'2", but I needed to be 6'7" with the game I had to get paid to play. And so it just wasn't going to compute. And so I ended up coaching the rest of that season. During that season, I'd just been married like the year before, and wife calls me up and says she's pregnant. And so of course I do the math. All right, it's mine. So I'm going back to California, and I'm going to have this kid. And but that's when I had to grow up, and I need to get a job with healthcare. And the USBL is like $1,600 a month, and they might pay for a hotel. There's no healthcare. So it's I ended up taking a high school job that had healthcare. And I got to coach. They gave me the job because I could coach. It's not like there's, hey, we want you to come teach at our school like I'm some great academic, because I'm not. You can look at my transcripts now. I was 2-point eligible like my whole year. Every year I was in college. Like whatever. Like, what do you need, coach? Okay, that's what I'm going to get. I didn't care too much about academics. So I got my first high school job, and I'm stubborn. When I took the job, I was like, I want to win a championship. And it took me like 20 years to win one. So that's why I was in high school like forever. And so but it was a good experience. I had a job at healthcare. My kids got to go to school. I coached my kids in high school. I got to watch my sons play football. Great experience of coaching coaching high school. And then, like I said on the show, like I literally get fired. I get fired, and I'm the California State High School Coach of the Year, like the reigning high school coach of the year. And they asked for my keys. That really did happen. And so I was at a crossroads, and like if I go on to be like a really good college coach one day, which is the goal, which is what I'm planning. Like this really happened to me. I called, I emailed, and I applied to 150 colleges the summer of 2019 as one of the top high school coaches in the West, on one of the top teams. And like 3 people called me back, 3, and nobody wanted to give me a job, like nobody. And so I was kind of depressed. It was a depressing time. Like I just I was just let go of my job, and nobody wanted me to coach at that high school level, at the college level. And I didn't want to go back to high school. Like, I'd done enough. Like, I'd won Southern Section championships. I'd been coach of the year. I didn't win the state championship. I was about 6 points short, but I wanted to coach college basketball. And I called the coach at Cal State LA and asked him for a job. He said no. The assistant coach overheard the conversation. He called me back the next day and said, "Hey, I need you to call John Mosley over at East LA Community College," because he knew John. And I called up John, and man, the rest was history, man. It was an incredible matchup. It was a perfect storm of personalities, of me and him going in the same direction. And I'm so fortunate and blessed to just get in that situation, because there was other JCs I thought about kind of going to, and I wouldn't have had the same experience, much less the Netflix experience, but just the same experience and that. So my basketball career was one of unfulfilled promise, but I feel like through coaching, I might be able to hit that ceiling I never got to do when I was playing.
And you
Yeah,
said there that
Mhm.
college is the goal. Is that like the dream is college, or would you, if someone offered you, a job in the pros somewhere, is it a natural progression for you, or is it just
You
like the
know
end
what?
goal is college?
If it happened today, the truth, there's no way I'm ready for professional basketball, and because of my mindset, like I've been fortunate enough the last couple weeks. I've been on Zoom meetings with Steph Curry's trainer. Like, this is Steph Curry's guy, and this guy trains over 50 pros. All right. He has this company. It cost a boatload. Like, these dudes pay him a boatload of money to do this. And so he's helping me because he's kind of associated with Under Armour, and Under Armour and Nike right now are trying to figure out who's going to be a part of season 2. So everybody's being nice to us right now. So I've been in conversations with Steph Curry's trainer, and the more you talk to him, then the more, like 20 minutes into my conversation with Steph Curry's trainer, I pressed mute on the Zoom, and my wife was in the other room, and I said, "Hey, babe, I know nothing about basketball. I just want you to know that right now. I know nothing about basketball at all. Like, I'm a Neanderthal basketball coach." And then I went back on the Zoom and just soaked all of it back in. But the mentality of pros, like when he's telling me, like, the Golden State Warriors got 13 active guys, and then all of them practice a different amount of time according to their heart rate or according to what their workout was earlier in the morning. And how if Steph doesn't want to practice, he ain't practicing. If Draymond Green comes in and says he don't feel like playing that day, then he ain't gonna play that day. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but that's not where I'm at mentally. So I would struggle with that. I'd probably have to start and just watch for a year and kind of figure out the temperament and just how to coach those guys, because I'm used to 3:00. Damn it, we're practicing. Jump stops, get taped up, let's go. You just have that, mentality. So my goal is definitely just, I would like to have a full-time job with health benefits and coach college basketball. That's it. And if it's at the Division I level, so be it. If it's a Division II level, so be it. If it's a good JC job, so be it. I just want to use my gifts of teaching jump stops and chest passes with kids who need it. Even at the JC level where we don't give scholarships, but I would love to be in a position to where I can offer a kid a scholarship that's going to change his and his family's life for generations. That's what I would want to be in a position to do. So that's kind of the goal, is to get to that 4-year level where I can change the trajectory of a kid's last name.
You've mentioned Steph Curry a couple times, and he's obviously sort of an inspiration for every sort of normal size basketball player out there.
Yeah,
to hit the elite level and not be an elite size. Have you, in your kind of coaching throughout the course of his career, have you felt that he's influenced the way people, I mean, you're kind of starting to see it in the NBA, right? But is it almost a negative from a coaching perspective that you've got guys pulling up from 45 feet out to
oh my gosh,
shoot threes with 20 seconds left?
First of all, I'm pissed we didn't have Steph in 91, right? Because we could have modeled I got to model my game a little bit different. I hit a boatload of threes. I mean, I hit 144 threes one year in college. Like, I could really shoot the ball. Steph Curry, I might have went in a different, direction. I'm out here trying to play like the wrong guys. But Steph, you hear the joke, right? Like, Steph is broke basketball. Yeah, he's broken basketball. because he has. because he has. Steph has changed the game. He's changed the game in a way. Well, he changed it and a bunch of players with him. He's just kind of like at the forefront of it. But he's changed the game to where you're watching a top program in the country like Alabama say, hey, man, we're only shooting threes and layups. Like, dope. They've changed the way that they coach according to the way this dude is making threes, or the way the game has changed to make threes. But in our practices, that's never going to happen. You know what pisses us off is when we open up the gym and kids come in and play, because you want kids to play the right way all the time. Like, if you want to have fun playing basketball and play it your way, well, then go to Venice, go to your high school gym, like go act a fool somewhere else. But when you come into a college gym, you should play like you're going to play in college. Like, let's get better. And so when you have an open gym and a kid comes across half court and he pulls up from the logo, and he's yelling like, I'm Dame, I just feel like throwing a basketball at him and hitting him, like literally, like bam, like, no, you're not. Like, that's not a high percentage shot. Like, let's take high percentage. Like, I can make that. And they'll say that, like, kids believe they can make that shot. And you know what? They can, like 1 out of 10 times, but you're going to lose. So it's really frustrating in that sense. But in our practice, oh, that's never going to happen. If you pulled up from 35 feet in our practice, you'd be able to do it once. Yeah, the second time, like, the whole team coach wouldn't even put us on the line. He'd take us to the track. He'd probably make the coaches run if somebody did that. So I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. That's for sure.
Yeah. Everyone trying to shoot from the logo or do the James Harden step back.
Or the James Harden travel. It's not a step back. It's a travel. And what's frustrating is every time our kids do it, it's a travel. And every time James does it, it's a bucket. And so it's very frustrating. Like, it's very, because I don't teach that. I'll teach a step back, but not the James Harden step back, so it's very difficult. These guys in the NBA can make your life kind of hard. But the positive about that today is that players don't watch games anymore. They only watch highlights. So they don't watch too much, of it, which is a new phenomenon. It's crazy how my guys don't watch any basketball. Like, when we were in college, we watched every game all night, whatever was on TV. Whatever was on, we're watching the entire game. My players right now, like, you watch the game? No. They were playing video games, and then at 10 o'clock, watch 20 minutes of highlights of basketball games, and that's basketball for them now. So it can be a challenge, because I'm telling them, like, well, who do you play like? Like, let's watch this game. Or I'll bring in my point guard. I used to do that with LJ, who played on our team. I loved LJ, great lefty. And I'd bring LJ in, and I'm like, what level you want to play at? And he was like, I think I could play in the Mountain West. So, I go on ESPN3 and I put on Fresno State versus Nevada. And I'm like, oh, let's look at the point guard. And he's watching it. It's like he's watching it for the first time. Like, how do you know where you want to go unless you're really watching that level, and not a highlight, but watching that level? And so that's a problem with kids today. Even high school kids, they're not watching games. They're watching highlights or playing video games, and it's screwing up all our fundamentals.
That's super interesting. It's not one of those things I'd even thought about. I'm not in that generation. I guess I'm just too old, where like the internet highlights, I like them. I like digesting it for games I'm not going to watch, but I'm still there watching all the kind of games. And I can't imagine how much you're missing out on developing your like basketball IQ by just not watching other people do something at an elite level or the level you want to get to.
They don't do it. They want to play Division I, but won't watch a Division I basketball game. That's it. But they'll tell you, like, hey, you see the dunk from the kid from Houston, and I'm like, well, Houston led the country in offensive rebound. Anybody watch any of that? Like, can we get some of that? And it's a different struggle with the kids. And I'm not complaining, because I mean, our coaches said the same thing about me in 91, because I didn't play like the guy from 81 or 71. That's just, things change, man, but old people just want to make basketball great again, just like that idiot president we had. So it's, you can't go backwards. You got to go forward, man. You got to go forward.
So we brought up Steph Curry a few times to get off topic a little bit, and I guess just talk some basketball. Do you think he has a shot to win MVP this year? Because now he's starting to come up in the talk a little bit.
The thing about the MVP stuff is and I do follow, I read it a lot, and it's always interesting to me. We're such victims of the now, or the last week or two. And so what I try to do, because somebody asked me this question like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, well, hold up. I'm trying to think, what was he doing in January? Like, I can't remember, like I know it wasn't 17 a game, but what was going on in January? Were we having this conversation about somebody else? Or because I mean, realistically, from a basketball standpoint, it's the same argument like he had with MJ in the 90s. To me personally, LeBron James is the MVP of basketball. That's just what it is. Like, Michael was the MVP every year. Just every once in a while they gave it to somebody else. Like, he is the MVP like every year. But like, hey, give Chuck the MVP this year. Like, but to me, LeBron's always the MVP if he plays the 82 games. But people can kind of sneak in for other purposes to kind of grab that from him. So with LeBron not playing this year, now I'm more open to like, all right, let's kind of see that. But we are victims of the now. But Steph's kind of historic. But I mean, geez, like if Westbrook could win some more games, my gosh, like look what that guy does, like with the ball, like in the last couple weeks. And there's some players, and Dame can always be in the conversation as well. When you're a basketball coach, you kind of see it differently. You see everything so much differently than like as a fan. And I try my best, guys, to watch basketball as a fan. I try to enjoy it. I desperately try to enjoy basketball, but at some point I stop enjoying it and I'm just breaking it down, and it's a curse. It's literally a curse. And so I can't enjoy it as much, but I just see it from a different perspective. And sometimes an MVP to me, like James Harden was never an MVP to me. Never. That's not saying he's not the greatest scorer I've ever seen or a joy to watch, but I never thought of him as the most valuable basketball player in the league, because to me, you can't be an MVP of anything unless every single person around you is better because you're there. To me, like, and you got to be great, right? But everybody around you, like the guy selling popcorn has to be better because of you at the stadium. That's the MVP to me, because that's how I coach. Every day my job is just to make everybody around me better. That's it. And that's how you're an MVP, is you got to make people better. And I don't know how much better the players were on Harden's team when he's winning MVPs. Not to downplay his game, because I love watching him play. I'm not saying that, but like, who's the guy who is averaging 28 and makes everybody better? Like, who's that guy instead of the guy getting 35? Who there's people on his team that don't even exist out there because of him. Like, you don't even know they're out there, or they're not better basketball players. Besides, what's his name? Who's the Clint Capella? Was that his name? Like that dude who just
the center
there and got 15 million a year because he would just catch his dunks.
yeah.
And he ain't made a bucket since wherever he went to. So from that,
he made his bank account better.
Oh, James Harden. Yeah, he sure did. He did that on those lobs, man, for sure. And Mike D'Antonio, that's him. Yeah, and that right? Anywhere D'Antonio goes, if you can catch a lob, you can get a paycheck.
So when you're then watching these games from a coach's perspective, is there one player in the NBA or even just at a college level from the past season that you look at that you'd really love to coach?
Oh man, there's so many guys. I'm gonna tell you, watching and the first time I saw the point guard from Gonzaga play, I was sold. When I saw Jalen Suggs play, I would tell him, if it was me, and then maybe I don't know, that's not even a question. That's who I would take. That guy right there is a better version right now, like maybe not in the league, but like at the same point, he is a much better version than Westbrook at this moment, like right now. That when Westbrook when he came in and kind of was feeling himself and getting that. I absolutely love Jalen Suggs because of what he does defensively. I mean, I loved watching him play like this entire season. From a coaching standpoint, I like watching Houston play, the Houston Cougars, and because of what I just touched on, because no one crashes the glass like they do. And I'm fascinated by that. Like, how do you get 5 dudes to go get a rebound and not get beat on defense? Like, going back, like how does that transpire? So I loved watching Jalen and the Houston Cougars this year. Anytime they were on, to me, it was must see. Like, I would tape those games. I would tape them, and so I could watch the Zags just to see, just to watch Jalen play, because I love the way he was a great on-ball defender, but he was probably the best safety I've ever seen in college basketball. Like he was guarding all 5 guys at the same time somehow. Like he would come off and get steals. Like he was just always seeing everything like he was Sean Taylor back there. Like he was a safety. It was incredible, to watch that guy play. But I watch a lot of college basketball, and for the same reason, and I don't even enjoy. I try to enjoy it, I do. But then you're watching Gonzaga, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at that wrinkle out of that high post offense. We kind of run that. Maybe I get my post man there, and then you're rewinding it. And now I don't even care about the score no more. I'm trying to figure out how you initiate the offense from the right side to get it on the left block like that. It's a crazy way to look at the game, but that's why I enjoy football so much, guys. I absolutely love football because I just watch it and have fun watching it. Mosley East. I just love it. That's Coach Mosley looking. It was Hampton, and now it was Mosley looking for.
I feel so honored you're rejecting these calls for us.
Hey, well, try and get a hold of Mosley in a day. That dude's man. Everybody's he might be on the phone with the Jump and Kendrick Perkins right now. Like you don't even know. Like I called him the other day, and he's like, "Hold up, man, I'm talking to Matt Barnes and Kendrick Perkins on a call." I was like, "All right, coach, talk to you in a minute."
He hasn't made it on the Big Chill podcast yet, though.
And that was it. Yeah.
So I think before we let you go, I'm just fascinated by you being in the USBL, driving a van full of guys in the late 90s through Atlantic City and Camden. Can you at least give us one good story about it?
Oh my gosh. Hey, it would be me and 8 or 9 guys, according to what the owner had that week. Because if he had an extra $900, I could get a 9th dude and bring him in and go play. But when you went to play that, you would play Camden, and then you would play Atlantic City. And I can't remember why we had to play in Asbury Park. We had to play Atlantic City and Asbury Park instead of Atlantic City that time. But
so I'm from the Jersey Shore originally, so I know what Asbury Park was like in the 90s. So I can only imagine what playing there must have been like.
Yeah, like if you slipped and fell, you could get hepatitis from a needle. There's no question that could happen at Asbury at that time. Hey, we were in an event. Hey man, I got some incredible stories about I was in all right, which one? I'm gonna go with this one. All right. Howard Jefferson. There was a Howard Jefferson hotel, right? And this wasn't in Asbury, but we're going to Asbury. We stayed at a really cool hotel in Asbury though. Like it was an older one that's historic. And I still have the key. I kept the key. And I don't know why, but I kept the key from that. But we're in Jersey and we stayed at Howard Johnson. And I come down one night, and so there's no policing men, right? There's no policing. These dudes are grown men. Like they would talk to me. They would literally talk to me while they're rolling up a blunt back in the 90s. Like, yeah, coach, yeah, we got to work on them passes tomorrow. Like they're blowing smoke in my face. Like it was a whole different thing. But we're at a Howard Johnson, and it's like 2 a.m. and I go down to get something out of a food machine, right? And I'm not checking on the players because it's futile. Like they could be in New York City right now. I have no idea what's going on, right? So we're down there, and one of my players is talking to this girl in the lobby, a woman. He's talking to a woman in the lobby, and the woman looks shady. Like she looks shady. She looks like she committed a crime. She looks just shady, not homeless, but like shady, right? And my boy is talking to her, and I don't want to know what happens, right? But that night, I don't even ask. But the next day, and I just asked him, like, what's up with the girl in the lobby? Like, what's up with the girl in the lobby? And he tells me, he said about halfway through their conversation, I had left. He said the police roll up, like she sprints like out the back. And come to find out, I don't know her name, but she's like on like America's Most Wanted, like the TV show, like they were looking for her, like she was robbing Walmarts or something. It was this crazy story. And so my boy's telling me, he goes, yeah, man, she's like one of America's Most Wanted on that show, man. They was looking for her. And I'm like, yeah, that's Jersey, man.
Yeah. I thought you meant for a moment like it was live, like the live chase was going on.
No, it wasn't a live chase, but he said the police came in and told him, like, no, we're looking for her. She's one of those people off of that. And he's telling me that story. And I'm like, oh man, he was like 10 minutes probably from taking her to the room. But she's out the back door, and it's and because she's running from the police. But if you can imagine,
you might have been down a point guard the next day.
and he was, oh my God, he was good. He was good too. He was an incredible point guard. He was actually Mr. Basketball in Indiana once. Like, hey, I played with, it was the most incredible group of characters you've ever been around in your entire life. And like I said, the only reason I haven't wrote the book is because I want to work still. That's the only reason. If I could do it, there's no way any but college would ever hire me. There's no chance. And there's no way anybody be like, yeah, you can coach my kids. I wouldn't have had a high school job. Oh my gosh, no. But it was you're around a bunch of dudes like 23 to 27 who just are very talented and just don't give a damn. And they're in your van and you're driving them to DC and Atlantic City and Long Island. Oh my gosh, the story of the Long Island and the ferry, and how we left 3 guys. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. But I learned a lot about basketball, and I met a lot of cool people. Daryl Dawkins, Rick Barry, who was a complete asshole. Earl Curitan, who these are the guys I was coaching against. I mean, it was crazy that I was 25 and I didn't know anybody, and I'm shaking hands with Daryl Dawkins before the game.
Was their experience the same? Like, is Daryl Dawkins driving a bunch of guys around?
Oh gosh, no. These other owners, man, they had like real stuff. Like my stuff was I mean, we were in a van, and they would get in the van, and I would drive us from Columbus to wherever the game was, wherever it was. And it was just me and 8 or 9 guys, man. And they, like I said, they didn't even care. I was so worried we were going to go. There was so much weed and drugs and in the car, and they would hop it. We were going through the tunnel one time. Is it the tunnel that goes, there's a tunnel between New York and Jersey, right?
Yeah.
There's a tunnel. Okay.
The Lincoln Tunnel.
Okay. So we're going from New York to Jersey, and there's a traffic jam. And one of the players, he goes, hey man, I got to get some blow. I'm out of here. And so he jumps out the car, and we're just hoping he gets back by the time we go through the tunnel. But luckily the traffic jam was long enough, and he gets back in the car like 20 minutes later, and he's like, I'm straight. And I'm like, really? He goes, oh yeah, you can get it anywhere over here. Like, I don't even know what corner he went.
Wait, how do you do that in the 90s with no cell phones and nothing?
But in 20 minutes, but in 20 minutes in a traffic jam before we get through the tunnel, one of my dudes jumped out and got some cocaine somewhere, and then got back in the van like it was nothing. He's like, all right, Rob, let's ride. And I was like, oh, it was an interesting time, man. And to contrast that, like 3 months later or 4 months later, yeah, like I'm coaching 15-year-old kids in high school. So it was
you're telling them these stories for motivation.
Oh gosh, no. Oh gosh, no. Oh no. I'm telling them, I'm trying to keep them out of detention. You know, it was a heck of a switch there, but I learned a lot about basketball, met some really cool, incredible experience. I sure hope I get to tell those stories one day, man. I sure do.
I mean, I really enjoyed Last Chance U, but it sounds like Netflix was filming the wrong part of your career.
Oh, hey, if they'd have had that, it would have been oh man, that'd have been a heck of a story. That would have been a heck of a story.
Well, I know we're approaching that time where you've got to go, so we don't want to hold you for too long.
Oh man, every interview I've done, fellas, has gone completely off the rails, but it's been basketball. And then usually, you know, they ask the questions like, hey, sorry to keep you. Hey, not at all. I could talk hoops all day, but really I do have some more work to do. And I'm going in a gym tonight I'm trying to get a 6'9" kid who ain't got grades. So I got to be over at that gym around 4:30 today, because it never stops to get the next kid. But my experience with Netflix, fellas, incredible. And the reason why I think we're so proud of it, me, Coach Mo, and Ken, is that I think it's the first time the world, the country, and even our own communities saw a light on community college basketball and what it can do for a certain demographic of kids, you know. And that's why it was so important to us. And that's why we feel so good about it, because we're not the only JC in America. You know, there's 200 something JCs out there doing what we do. and what we do works. Like those kids that we were working with, like if it wasn't for basketball, we would have serious problems in our society with those kids. Like that, those are the ones that you're reading about and you hear about and the stories about. And through hoops, we were able to make a huge difference, like in this kid's life. And so what we do works. And so I would hope that the show shows everyone like, hey, support us in what we do. Like not just me, but that junior college in Kansas or that junior college in Iowa or Texas or New York or wherever, like support that community college, because if you support us, we support them. And then we can really make a difference in this group's life. I mean, we're just hoops. This is our job, right? Everybody in society has got to do their different thing to help pull these kids through that have these issues. Ours is hoops, but man, I'm hopeful, and you guys kind of reiterate like the show was a positive in that sense, and that's what we're grateful for with the show, is that show a light. What we do works. Coaching works, and if you support us, we can really help these kids out. And like I said, change the trajectory of their last name, because that's all we're trying to do is make their lives better.
No, absolutely. I think that comes across in the show. And I also think, like, be it the football series or the basketball series, it also just raises awareness about the life within community college, the kind of importance that they play within the communities themselves, and also kind of, I guess, removing some of the stigma maybe associated with people who, like either from a player's perspective who doesn't want to see it as like dropping down to that level.
Yeah.
And then from an outsider's perspective, a more of an appreciation of the level of skill of the players that are going there, that it's not just some kid who is like on his JV team.
Oh
Who,
gosh, no.
you know what I mean? Which I think from some outsiders, they might think from time to time.
Oh, I can't believe how many people like, oh, like even that coach junior college in other parts of the country, like, oh, I didn't know you guys were that good in California. Like, oh yeah, like we would show up and whoop your ass. And there's no question. Like we got good play. We got Division I basketball players on our team. Like we can play. So it's not a stigma. I mean, I was there. I was at a junior college, and I had grades and I was a Division I athlete. I mean, stuff happens in our lives, and when you're there and you're going through it, you need help. And that's what JC can be there for. We can help these kids, man. So anytime I can talk about JC hoops or just basketball in general, hey guys, I'm in. And they tentatively, because these things can be real fluid, they're going to start in August, and they'll start filming again for season 2.
Oh, that's awesome. Because
yeah,
that's what I was going to ask, because your season got canceled last year, right?
Yes,
the fall season. Okay. So you're back on track now, though.
We should have a full season next season. We should be able to do showcases for our kids this spring and summer, to where they can get a look during the NCAA viewing period. LCU is planning on being there like the first day of school in August to get it through, see if we can run it back and win a state championship. All that can, like I said, you just never know. Like with things like this, like they'll sign a contract on a Tuesday and film on a Wednesday. Like they'll tell you what's going to happen, but until the contract is signed, you just never know. But there's been some production meetings and phone calls and different things that's been happening in that direction, to where a season 2 can happen. And when that's the case, hey, you were invited. Catch up with me in January, guys, and I'll let you know where it's at.
Awesome.
And you can get
Sounds
the scoop,
good.
get the scoop first of where it's at. Although from what I hear, I mean, this is even crazy. From what I hear, there's a good chance that our games might be televised next year.
Wow.
There's
For real? Wow.
Yeah. There's things in the works where like people are going to want to watch us, and there's various outlets that have talked to our coaches and talked to the AD, and like how do we get this on TV, like, and because it makes sense, man. Us against Santa Monica, or watch cornhole on ESPNU, like what the hell, like what the hell is that? Like put us on instead of that, right? Like people would watch that.
I don't know. There's some pretty good athletes in cornhole. I don't.
and how's the team look this year?
Needless to say, we're not going to be hurting for talent. A lot of people want to play for us, but we're an LA team. I mean, we are, and so the struggle for us is to get LA kids. there's kids from all over the country that want to play for us, but we don't really have the housing to do that. We don't have dorms. It's very difficult for a family to come out here and get an apartment and then leave the kid in the apartment. There's a lot to it, right? So our goal is just to get the best. There's enough talent in LA to win the national championship in college basketball, much less junior college, as you almost saw UCLA did. Like UCLA, the whole team is Los Angeles except the point guard. All those kids are you can throw a rock from LA and those kids are from that area, right? So there's enough talent in LA to do it. We just have to do a good job of making sure the first week of school that they're at East LA Community College.
Great. Well, I guess
I'm excited.
we'll wish you luck for the upcoming next season, and we look forward to having you back on for all the scoops. We'll hold you to that.
The scoop and the follow. Oh yeah, for sure, man. You can have it. Hey, the more light you shine on us, the better we're going to be, guys.
Great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to
much.
us. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks.
Oh man, it was
Appreciate it.
fun. It was my first time talking to somebody from England. Like, who's your favorite soccer team? Like, who's your favorite team?
I'm an Arsenal fan.
Arsenal. My brother, for some reason, he loves soccer. He coaches high school soccer in Kansas City. He's a huge Sporting KC fan, season tickets, loves the Premier League. He loves Arsenal as well. It's like we're trying to figure out a way to get back and go drink some beer and watch a game one day. We're trying. We don't know how, but we're trying.
If he wants to have a chat with an Arsenal fan, send him my way. We can have a chat on here.
Oh yeah, man. I love he loves it. He got me into it. I'm more of, USA versus anybody soccer fan, but it's anytime I talk to somebody in England, I'm like, geez, I got to get there. Cause they're more passionate about that than us basketball fans. The only thing that's comparable is like an Alabama football fan, or somebody like that. That's the only thing that's comparable in the States. And man, I respect that kind of love for passion for a sport to where, you'll burn some shit down if you don't win. I'm in. I'm in. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. No problem, guys. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks. Have a nice day.